Alrighty, everybody. It is currently Friday, December 20th, 2025, and I'm coming at you live from the moon of Pandora in the world of Avatar. Uh, I tried to record yesterday. I got about 10 minutes in, and then I found out that I guess my family was going to go see the new Avatar movie. And we ended up, there was a bit of a miscommunication amongst us as to what time we were meeting there, or what time we were leaving to go there. My sister said 4:30, and what the group thought about that was we're leaving at 4:30, and then we'll get there, and we'll be early and watch the ads or whatever. No, apparently the movie started at 4:30, and so we end up getting there about 5ish. We got there about 30 minutes. Not 30 minutes after the movie started, maybe like 10, 15 minutes after the movie started. And let me tell you, I wish I was a little bit later. I I wish I was a little bit later that movie because first of all, it's 3.5 hours long. At the very least, I don't know how long it actually is, but I think it's about 3.5 hours long. And it's you. One thing you have to understand about me and Avatar is I love that shit, dude. I love the first one. I love the second one. I love like all the video games about it. Love those movies. And the video games and the world and all that stuff. That one was a tough one to sit through, dude. It was a Marvel movie. Like that's I'm gonna try not to spoil anything about the movie. It was a bit of a Marvel movie. It just during like the whole thing, I swear to God, at one point I heard a He's right behind me, isn't he? Like that's kind of the shit that was going on with that movie. Um, and it's called Fire and Ash. And I don't think that this is a spoiler, but if you are super into it, I imagine you've already seen it, but they're barely in the movie. Like that's it. It's called the first or the second one is called Avatar: The Way of Water, and they spend the whole time in the ocean, like talking to the whales or whatever. I kind of forget the plot of that one, but there's whales, and they spend a lot of time in the water. This one's called Avatar: Fire and Ash. We see a bit of fire and almost no ash during the course of that movie. I think there's maybe one scene with ash in it in that entire movie. Um, it was just, and it's kind of like when they were writing it, a bunch of people got together and there was not really a boss, right? I think that's like the general feeling I got from that. Is like no one was in charge of it. Like that's James Cameron directed it, but the actual script itself and like the editing and all that stuff and deciding what was going to go into the movie and what wasn't, there was no one in charge of that. It was just a group of people being like, all right, like that's what it felt like. It felt it felt at times almost like a group project where someone's in charge of like one section of the slides and another person's in charge of another section of the slides, right? Like that. And then you put it all together and it's just like this mismatch of like one dude is like, you have like a chick in your group, like a kind of nerdy chick in your group, and she has like pictures and it's all like bullet points and like part of it's highlighted and part of it's not highlighted. And then you have like the other part of it, which is just a dude who wrote like text on like a white background. Like that's kind of what the movie felt like. And it's the individual component parts I think weren't necessarily bad, but when you put them all together, it was just like it didn't really work that well, in my personal opinion. Decent movie overall, I do think, but there was some garbage in that. Like, there was some parts of there where I was like, I had to look at the ground. I could not look at the screen anymore. I was in a movie theater and I wasn't looking at the screen. There were some parts that were so bad in there. But I do have to say, I'm gonna be honest. I've always been attracted to the blue alien chicks. Always thought they were hot. I don't. I think everyone does. I think I'm just like one of the only person or one of the only people out there who's brave enough to say it. And I always found them hot. But this one, in my opinion, does have the hottest of all the hot chick blue alien, tall, sexy blue alien ladies. This one's got the hottest one, in my personal opinion. It's like the leader of the fire tribe, and she's physically hot, but it's the attitude she has as well. She has this way about her. You know what I mean? I don't know if I would betray the human race for the one that the dude falls in love with in the first movie. This lady though, she might get me to betray the human race. You know what I mean? She's got something about her that I really liked. Um, but yeah, it's a movie. Like I said, title is incredibly misleading. It should be called Avatar: Fire and Ash, but mostly water, because they're still in the water tribe for like. I guess this is a spoiler. They're there for most of the movie. They barely ever leave that spot, and I think some of the characters just never leave it at all. Like one time throughout the entire movie, and the ending was just so condensed. Like I said, the movie didn't need to be 3.5 hours long, but there was still, like, it felt too long. But even then, there were still some parts of it that felt so rushed, and I think the end was part of that for sure. And they're also like they're they're like bringing the previous movies into it, but in a way that's like super weird. You know what I mean? In a way that's like they're bringing like side characters from the previous movie, or not even side characters, like tangential, like on the fringes type characters back into the movie. And it's like, oh, I kind of remember that guy from one of them, but like, what the fuck is he doing here? You know what I mean? Show me some new characters. I don't, there was like maybe one or two new characters in this entire movie, like main characters, which I guess makes sense. You know what I mean? You've established a baseline with the other two movies, but still, it was not. Yeah, I was disappointed by it. It could have been heat, dude. It literally could have been fire. You know, they only show the fire village for like 2 minutes throughout the whole thing. Um, but yeah, it was overall pretty good. And yeah, I didn't, and that's the reason I didn't get to record yesterday. Yesterday, I thought it was Thursday, which just shows how like in the unemployed mindset I am. You know what I mean? Like not knowing what day of the week it is, that's the behavior of either someone who is chronically unemployed, like just extremely unemployed, or someone who's works their ass off every day and all they do is work. You know what I mean? There's no in between. Like people working 9 to 5, they always know what day of the fucking week it is. You know, they're not asking questions. They're not like, is it Thursday or Friday? They're counting down the days until Sunday. You know, but someone who works their ass off every single day, they don't have time. They can't keep track of that shit. And unemployed people just don't care at all. Right? There's no difference between Friday and Saturday and Sunday besides my friends are off work. Like that's the only difference for an unemployed person, you know. Um and I guess maybe people who are into sports probably like super into sports probably know what day of the week it is, but I know when it's Sunday, you know, cuz that's when the NFL happens and that's really the only sport that I watch a whole ton. I do not watch college football. I don't I don't know. I just can't get into it. I don't know. And it's not like I think the other reason I can't get into college football is because I don't go to like a super big college, right? And it's like, yeah, I do live in a college town. I live where KU is and stuff, but I don't know. I just don't care about KU football. And I don't really care about KU basketball that much either. I've never been a big basketball guy. I think basketball has the problem that soccer has, but in the inverse. I feel like there's so much scoring in basketball that only like the last quarter is relevant to me, in my personal opinion. Like you look at the score of almost every like high level basketball game, like NBA or like um Division 1 game, we're talking like most of those scores are like 6 points, like a 6 point win. Like that's about where it is, and to me that's boring, right? And then soccer's boring because there's like no scoring at all, and I think that's why the NFL to me is like the ultimate sport, or at least like ball sport. For one, it's a team sport, you know what I mean? And the players switch off constantly, right? You got offense and defense, so you're constantly you're getting a different view of your team every like 10 minutes. And I think there's something very entertaining about that, right? Sometimes you're getting an offensive view of them, sometimes you're getting a defensive view of them, and sometimes that can be a problem, right? Because your defense can really fucking suck donkey dick. But I think that's entertaining. And I think the scoring is perfect. You know what I mean? Because it can come down to the last minute. And especially in today's game, it does a lot. But for the most part, they don't score too much, but they don't score never. And I think to me that's why football is so much better than soccer and even basketball. Although, saying you're not into basketball in Kansas is like you should just it would be safer to come out as gay. You know what I mean? And like Kansas, especially like around where I live, right around the Lawrence area and stuff like that, you would be safer probably saying you're a Nazi, to be honest, than saying you're not into basketball. Like saying you're not into basketball in in the part of Kansas where I'm from, that's a big problem. It's like Indiana level. Like that's how much people around here love basketball. They're so into it, and I'm just like, I'm into the last 5 minutes of basketball. Like that's the part of basketball that I'm into. I'm into the last 5 minutes, and I don't care about the fundamentals of basketball, and that is like a low T quality that I have. Like that's the biggest low testosterone, like soy boy quality that I have. I don't care about fundamental basketball. Like if you love fundamental basketball, you probably have a T score of over like 800 at least. Like if you're really in the fundamental basketball, if you're like if you love free throws, if you look at a guy who has a free throw percentage of over 90% or whatever, and you could like get excited about it, you you don't need to go to the doctor and get your testosterone checked because I know it's high, dude. if you if you love free throws and 3 pointers where the dude barely gets off the ground, then you have high testosterone. You will never need to get on TRT. That's a high testosterone sort of quality that I lack. I lack that quality. I see a guy shoot a corner three, and it doesn't excite me at all. And it's a shameful part of myself. I feel shame every time I see a guy hit like a fadeaway bank shot and I don't get excited. I'm like, God, I might be trans. Like when I see that stuff, I go, am I a woman? Like why am I not excited by this? It's such everyone I know who's like really in into fundamental basketball is high T as fuck. Is so high T. You know? Um Same with guys who like love watching like offensive line play. I will say that is a high testosterone quality that I have. Love watching the offensive line play. I'm really into it. Like when a guy pulls, nothing gets me more excited than seeing like a pulling guard. Um, and every time I see an offensive tackle catch a pass, I do get pissed off. you know, the offensive line should be barely able to move. Like that's how I want my offensive lineman. I don't want him athletic. I don't want an offensive lineman that runs a 40-yard dash over 5 seconds, I'd say. I like him big. I like him slow. I like him able to run in short bursts, but when you see them run, like their body's barely moving. You know what I mean? Like they're not lifting their legs up super high or whatever. It's like just below the knee. Like that's how they run. That's the type of offensive lineman I like to see. Stiff ass arms, head down, dude. I don't want to see your head up if you're playing offensive line. I want to see your head down. I want to see you getting CTE and compressing your spine and shit like that. That's what I like to see out of my O line. And so I will say it's a very high testosterone quality that I have. But I'm never gonna get my T checked. You know what I mean? I'm not a doctor guy like that. I've never been a big fan of people who are like that. Same with IQ tests. It's like I don't know. It feels dumb to me. It's like, oh, I have a high IQ, and it's like, what the fuck does that? Okay, dude, you're still poor. It doesn't. You have someone having a high IQ doesn't mean anything to me. You know, right? Like there's a lot of like the online like kind of mega church Christian people. They always point to this one like Chinese dude who has the highest IQ in the world. He has like a 200 IQ or whatever, and he's like, I have a 200 IQ and I believe in God. And I'm the smartest guy on earth, so you should believe in God too. And it's like, I'm not saying don't believe in God or whatever, but some Chinese nerd who's just really good at solving puzzles, he doesn't know if God's real or not. You know what I mean? That's not how God operates. You know what I mean? From my understanding of the Bible, And the fact that I went to Catholic school for 8 years, God doesn't operate by like giving you a fucking Rubik's Cube to solve or whatever. It doesn't, having a high IQ, I don't think correlates in any way with like being closer to God or whatever. God just kind of, sometimes it seems a little bit random, on who he chooses to reveal himself to. But I don't think he operates based on the IQ scale, you know. And you got to think about like the fact that people back during biblical times, they were all retarded. Like that's they were all dumb. Like humans have gotten way, way smarter over the past, 6,000 years or however long the Bible's been around. I don't really know, but they've gotten significantly smarter back then. So I don't think God works on like an IQ basis. You know what I mean? I don't think he's sitting down looking at the tests or whatever. But yeah, like I said, never been a big doctor guy. I did have to go to the doctor this past week, and it's why I didn't. I wanted. It's winter break, and so I have a ton of free time. So I've been wanting to record more episodes, but this week I had a gum infection, not like my whole mouth, but just like one little specific part of my gum where my wisdom teeth are growing in, and I guess I don't have enough space in my jaw for the wisdom teeth on the bottom to grow in. The ones on the top are perfectly fine, but they still want me to remove them, and at this point I'm just like, yeah, cut them out. I don't give a shit. Cut the top ones out too. And so I'm gonna have to get my wisdom teeth removed soon, and so I'll pre-record all that shit. But and the thing about that is like I have a huge head. And so it's like if my giant head doesn't have enough space for the wisdom teeth to grow in, does anyone have enough space for their wisdom teeth to grow in? It's like, dude, my head is huge. You guys don't understand. I have a giant fucking head. If you put my head next to Shaq's head, if you decapitated me and Shaq and put our heads next to each other, you would assume that I'm like 8 feet tall. Like that's how fucking big my head is. I'm short as shit. I'm 5'2", and I have the head of someone who is 6'8". And even if you put my head on a 6'8" dude's body, it would still look fucking huge. I have a giant head. It's a gigantic fucking head. And it's like even I don't have enough space for like all my wisdom teeth to properly grow in. And it's like, so if I don't have enough space, I don't know who does have enough space for their wisdom teeth to grow in. But I probably also have like giant teeth too, right? I guess I'm assuming that when I'm saying this, that I would have like the teeth of a dude who's 5'2", but I don't. I probably have the teeth of a dude who's 7'5". You know what I mean? Like me and Victor Wembanyama probably have the same size teeth. Like that's how fucking gigantic my head is for no reason. It doesn't make any sense at all. I don't know why my head's fucking huge. I have like a pretty normal sized like frame for the rest of my body. It's a little bit weird, but it's pretty normal. It's pretty standard, but just a gigantic fucking bobblehead that's like the width of my shoulders. My jawline spans from one shoulder to the other. My my jawline is the width of my clavicles. Like that's how huge my fucking head is, dude. I have a giant goddamn head. uh, but yeah, so I'm gonna have to get those bitches cut out, and it's like, I'm a little bit worried about what I'm gonna say when I'm under anesthesia. I'm liable to say anything, anytime, anyway, and so I feel like when you see all like those viral videos of the people who are under anesthesia or whatever, and they say, is that what it's called? Anesthesia? It's fucking, I don't know. But you see all like those videos of people saying crazy shit. I don't know how I'm gonna pop off. I might say it, dude. I really hope none of the doctors or like nurses or whatever are black, because I might say it, dude. It might pop out. Like I feel like that's the type of stuff I'm liable to say under anesthesia. And I'm also, the other thing that I'm worried about is the opioids. That's the other thing I'm worried about when I'm getting my teeth cut out, because I know they give you like, I think it's hydrocodone or some shit like that for when you're recovering, and it's like I already know I'm not gonna take that, dude. I'll just, I don't know, do edibles and like ibuprofen or whatever. I'm not taking heroin, right? Because I got my teeth out. I'm not doing that. But I don't know if they put like morphine in you You know what I mean? Like an IV in you when you first get out of surgery or whatever. Like that's what I'm worried about because I know I I I know I can how easily addicted I get to shit. You know what I mean? Just whatever it is, I get addicted to it. Just like the type of dude I am. And so I am a little bit worried about that. And I know like you hear doctors being like, "Oh, this isn't, street fentanyl, it's medical fentanyl." And it's like, dude, it's still fucking fentanyl, right? Like that's another funny anesthesia clip I saw online of this dude who was like, the doctor was like, "We're gonna be giving you fentanyl now," and he was like, "Fuck no, you're not. You're not giving me fucking fentanyl." And they were like, "No, don't worry, this is good fentanyl." And it's like, I understand like the medical science behind fentanyl and why you give it to people, but it's like, unless my fucking leg is literally snapped in half, I'm not gonna do that. Like I'll just be in pain. I'm used to being in pain. You know what I mean? I played I played O-line in high school, dude. My knees hurt constantly. I could barely get out of fucking bed in the morning. I have lower back pain constantly. I'm fine being in pain. You don't need to give me fucking fentanyl, dude. It's like that's one of the things about like the modern medical industry that weirds me out so much is like how pain based it is and how like based in like not feeling any pain it is. It's like, dude, it's gonna hurt sometimes. It's just the way it is. You can't just avoid pain altogether. It's a part of life. You know what I mean? It's what is 50 Cent saying? Many men. Life wouldn't be special if it wasn't for pain or some shit like that. I don't know. Joy wouldn't be special if it wasn't for pain. It's something like that, and I agree with him. I agree with Fitty on that one. You gotta feel pain sometimes. Yeah, your fucking mouth is gonna hurt, dude. You just got two teeth ripped out. It's gonna fucking hurt. I don't know what else to tell you. Don't do heroin because your mouth hurts, right? It's fucking insane to me that that's just like completely normalized or whatever. I get it if a dude's like screaming in pain, but at that point, it's like just knock him out. Just give him a little bit of fucking you know, xylazine or fucking horse tranquilizer, whatever they give people. Just knock him out at this point. At that point, it's like you're gonna hurt sometimes. It's gonna fucking hurt sometimes. If you're super old or whatever, or if you have like chronic cancer or whatever, then yeah, dude, pop off, right? Like if I ever found out I had like stage 4 leukemia or some shit, dude, it is party time. It is. I'm getting wrecked every day, constantly. I'm not gonna be sober for 2 minutes if I had like stage 4 cancer or something like that. I just wouldn't do it. So it's like that's understandable. But if your mouth hurts, it's like, yeah, your mouth it just hurts, dude. I'm sorry. Someone went in there with a fucking scalpel, ripped up your gums, and then ripped fucking two teeth out from the root, dude. It's gonna hurt. I don't know what else to tell you about it. And so that is one of the things I'm concerned about because it's like, dude, I'm not doing that shit. I'm not doing fentanyl. I'm not doing morphine. I'm not. If they give it to me, I'm gonna spurg the fuck out. I'm gonna freak out on them. I'll fully do that. I'll rip someone's face. Dude, they're gonna have to lock me down. They're gonna have to be like that fucking thing they put around ICE detainees. I saw this clip. If you don't know what I'm talking about, of it was Bryce Mitchell, the fucking UFC fighter who became retarded because Josh Emmett punched him so hard in the face he had a seizure. It was that guy. And I guess he's trying to become like a political guy now. He's like one of those right wing but still I don't know how to describe him. He's like right wing, but he's like a sympathetic right wing guy. He's playing to both crowds. I see what he's doing here. It's smart. I get it. And he was talking about this thing that they're putting ICE detainees in, but it's not just ICE detainees, apparently. Apparently, this is something the cops just use in general, but it's like a fucking burrito wrap, basically. And they'll put you in that if you keep resisting against them and if you're freaking out or whatever. And like that's one of the big things about the whole ICE thing to me, is that the police were doing this constantly anyways, right? It's just that like now deportation is the big, hot button political issue. And so now people are freaking out because ICE is doing it. It's like, dude, the cops have been doing this already. You think you think Trump invented this? It's it's just the people who like blame Trump for everything, and it's like, yeah, Trump is a fucking retard. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's running the country into the ground, or he does know what he's doing actually. Like that's a big. I feel like a lot of people are like politicians are dumb. They don't understand what they're doing and they're destroying this country because they're idiots. They're not idiots. They're actually extremely intelligent and they know exactly what they're doing. They're just doing an evil thing because they're fucking sociopaths who don't care about anybody but themselves. Right? Like don't ignorance is like a privilege almost, you know what I mean? Like being an ignorant person and being able to use that as like your excuse or whatever, that's a privilege, right? And it's not a privilege that like most of these politicians have. Like the ones calling Trump an idiot is like, first of all, if you're on the left and you're calling Trump an idiot, it's like then an idiot beat you. An idiot fucking whooped your ass and it wasn't even close. Like no rational person thought Kamala Harris was gonna fucking win that election. And it wasn't even fucking close, dude. And it's like you're calling the guy a fucking dum dum. You're calling him retarded and shit. And it's like a retard beat your ass, dude. Right? Like if I got in an argument with a dude with Down syndrome and I lost the argument to that guy, I'd be like fucking test his ass because there's no way that guy has that. I'd be doing everything I could to make that guy seem like a fucking genius. You know, even if it's like an evil genius, but they're not doing that. They're like, Trump's an idiot. And it's like, okay, well, this idiot is outsmarting you at every turn, so how fucking dumb are you? Right? Like that's how I feel about Trump. And whenever anyone calls someone like that an idiot, it's like AOC's a moron or whatever. And it's like, dude, she's been in Congress for I don't know, all of my adult life, and I feel like for most of the time that I was in high school or whatever, and she's pretty fucking successful and popular. And so it's like, I don't think she's an idiot. I think she's probably pretty decently smart. Most of those people, though, I am pretty conspiratorial when it comes to politics. Like, I don't actually think that any of those people are genuinely interested in becoming politicians. I think it's almost like an actor or something like that, where it's like that dude has the right look, he speaks in the right way, he does everything, he presents himself in the correct way. And, you know, the CIA or whoever the fuck taps him on the shoulder and goes, "You're going to be in Congress, buddy." Like that's my view when it comes to most politicians. Um, so yeah, I'm pretty conspiratorial when it comes down to it. You know, especially with politics. Like when people are like, the president changes everything. This is the future of the country right here, and it's like, dude, it's pretty similar. Like I'm gonna be honest with you, my life has not changed that much since Trump has become president. And I know people, oh, you're privileged. Blah, 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 blah. It didn't change that much when Biden became president. You know what I mean? And Biden was just as retarded as Trump. I don't think, I don't think the president has that much power. You know, and the whole ICE thing is like they were deporting people anyway. Like Biden wasn't deporting anyone, but fucking Obama was. Obama was deporting tons and tons and tons of fucking people. And so yeah, I think it just I am like a it's all connected type of guy, you know, when it comes to conspiracy theories and things like that. So I think it's just like the perception that changes when a new person becomes president. I don't think that much actually changes, right? Like the whole deportation thing is like, I don't know if the deportations have become any more brutal. I don't know if the police interaction with the public has become any more brutal since Trump has been president. I think now the media is just like, just showing it more, you know, as opposed to when old Sleepy Joe was president and they were focusing on, you know, chocolate chip or whatever. And like my whole thing about the deportation and like the brutality of it is like, yeah, man, that's just like the way it's gonna be. I you know, especially when it comes to Tim Dillon, like I listen to a lot of Tim Dillon, and one of the things he says that kind of irks me, and I get this is a dumb complaint, it's a retarded complaint. It's like then just don't listen to him anymore. But he's fucking hilarious, so I'm gonna keep listening to him. But he talks about like he wants deportation and stuff like that, but he's against some of like the brutal things that are coming out of it. And it's like that's going to be a part of it, right? When you're talking about a massive operation that includes millions of illegal immigrants and like probably hundreds of thousands of law enforcement officers, there's going to be some sort of brutality in that chaos that comes out of it, right? It would be like if you were kind of talking about World War II, and I'm not saying that I'm pro deportation or anti deportation or whatever. I don't. It's not the point that I'm getting at here. But it's like during World War II, if you were like, I support going to war in Germany to kill Hitler or whatever, but if there's going to be civilian deaths, then I'm not for it. And it's like, dude, that's just a part of war. You know what I mean? When you're conducting a massive war, especially in an urban environment, right? Like a lot of Europe was, then there's going to be civilian deaths. It's just one of the things that's going to happen. You can't say you can't let the perfect be the good of the enemy or the enemy of the good. Right? You can't let that happen. And another thing that I was thinking about with Tim Dillon, and this is like a point my friend brought up to me. He was like, at this point, I think Tim Dillon is the only like non like state actor like podcaster type out there, right? Like he's the only one who's not secretly controlled by the CIA or whatever. And I was like, yeah, I kind of agree with you, but he says like this one thing that's again that like I'm just like he it seems just like out of the norm for him, and he talks about it in the thing that he says that's kind of out of the norm for me is talks about Brian Thompson, the United Healthcare CEO or whatever, and he was like super against that killing, right? Super against that guy getting killed or whatever, and his explanation behind it is like, well, then there's going to be violence on the streets and stuff like that, and all these people are going to die or whatever. And it's like, what country do you live in? Right? What country do you live in that doesn't have school shootings constantly, mass shootings constantly, kids killing each other on the fucking street? You know what I mean? In Chicago and Detroit and wherever else. Like, we already live in a violent country. So it's like, this isn't going to add to that violence at all. And people are like, oh, well, it's a slippery slope. It's like, who are they going to kill next or whatever? And it's like, dude, the slope has been slipped. It's the slope has been sufficiently slipped, especially when it comes to like the healthcare shit. Like healthcare in this country is so. I think it's one of those things that in the future people are going to look back on and they're going to be like, what the fuck was that? Right? Like the way healthcare is approached in this country, like people that say America is like a third world country with a Gucci belt on or whatever, that's a retarded thing to say. You have no idea how hellish it is to live in a third world country. But I will say, I do think that the way healthcare is approached in this country is it's third worldish in nature to me. Like, I guess I'll use South Sudan for example, right? Like people look at South Sudan and they're like, it's a third world country with a corrupt government, and the government is evil, and like the way things work there is it's just so bad and horrible and stuff, right? Like they have enough money to feed everyone in the country, but not everyone gets fed. How evil is that? How horrible is that? And then you look at like America in the healthcare system, and it's like America, the government has more than enough money to give people free healthcare, right? And yet there's people dying every single day because they do not have access to healthcare and stuff like that, right? Despite the fact that there's more than enough money, right? You could just if like Amazon was appropriately taxed, we would have free healthcare in this country, right? Like that's the type of, not literally, but, and I'm not saying we have to have free healthcare or whatever. You know what I mean? I'm not a communist, not a filthy goddamn communist, but the way in which we approach healthcare is it's incredibly corrupt, and it's third worldish. You know, it's one of those things that I think we're gonna look back on and be like, what the fuck, right? Like there's people dying because they can't afford insulin or whatever, and it's like we have more than enough money to pay for the insulin of everyone in this country. There's more than enough money floating around that can just be like grabbed out of the air, right? Like a rounding error for Nvidia or something could save thousands of lives, and yet it's not happening. You know, it's third worldish to me. It doesn't make any sense, or it does make sense when you remember the fact that the government wants everyone in this country dead, right? It makes sense when you remember the fact that the government doesn't actually work for the people in this country. It works for these massive fucking corporations and shit like that. It makes sense when you account for reality, right? That's when the healthcare system starts to make sense. Would you remember the fact that s- the elite would kill every single one of us if they had the opportunity to, and they're probably actively trying to kill us? When you consider that truth, um, the healthcare system in this country does start to make a whole lot more sense, and really the approach to health as a whole starts to make a whole lot more sense when you remember the reality of the situation that we live in. It starts to make a whole lot of sense. And once again, I'm pretty conspiratorial when it comes to everything. So I don't think that Luigi Mangione killed Brian Thompson. I think Brian Thompson, that was probably like some sort of weird, like corpo world hit. You know what I mean? Like some mob type shit that we don't really understand. You know what I mean? That they were just like lacking a little bit on that one. Like that's my view of that situation. But I don't know, man. For people to like sit there and be like, can you believe how evil it was? He killed that guy. That guy had a wife and kids, and it's like, yeah, a lot of people have a wife and kids. It doesn't mean that they're not pieces of shit, right? Having being able to fuck a lady and pop out a couple little toddlers or whatever, that doesn't inherently make you a good person. I don't understand that argument at all. Can you believe can you believe they killed John Wayne Gacy? Can you believe they killed the BTK killer? He had a wife and kids. And I am comparing this CEO guy to those people. I am comparing them because it's like that guy made decisions that undoubtedly resulted in the deaths of probably thousands of people, right? United is it's one of the big it's like one of the two or three big health insurers in the United States, right? So that guy undoubtedly made decisions that led to the deaths of even 10 people is too many fucking people, you know what I mean? And not for the sake of saving the lives of other people, right? It's not the reason that those people died. Those people died so that the fucking shareholders could buy a new yacht or whatever. And once again, I'm not a communist, but you to pretend that America is a pure free market capitalist country is insane to me. It's crazy that people still try to push this myth that America's a fucking free market country or whatever, right? Like even zoning laws. Zoning laws are that's not free market. There's nothing free market about saying, well, you can't build a AT&T store right next to a Verizon store or whatever, right? That's anti-free market. If this truly was a free market country, dude, corporate espionage would be on the fucking table. You know what I mean? I would be allowed to lie and cheat and steal my way through fucking everything. And there would be no legal protections about it. Like that's what this would be if it was a true free market system. So for people to be like, oh, well, you think people should get health care? That's communist or whatever. It's like, but America's not capitalist either. We're this weird non-free market system that like we're like this oligarchy that pretends it's capitalist, right? Like that's kind of what America is at this point. And so it's like you might as well be a fucking communist. Like that's kind of my view on communism. It's like we're clearly not a capitalist society, right? We're clearly not cream rises to the top. The best the best is number one, right? That's clearly not the system we live in. There's a new iPhone every single fucking year. The old iPhone explodes, and the new iPhone is no different than the old iPhone, and you have to pay $2,000 to get it, right? That's not that's not innovation or anything. And I don't think communism drives innovation. I think communism drives the death of tens of millions of people. But I mean, if we're pretending that this oligarchy that we live in is a capitalist country, right? If that's what we're telling people, if we're telling people that this is a capitalist economy, then it's like, of course they're going to be communists. Like, how are you surprised by that fact? How are you surprised by the fact that you're telling someone that you're giving someone a plate of shit? You're giving someone a plate piled to the fucking ceiling with shit. And then you're saying, this is lobster and foie gras. And then they're like, well, I don't like lobster and foie gras. That's basically what we're doing with capitalism. Is we have this thing that isn't capitalism and we're telling people it's capitalism. And then obviously they fucking hate capitalism. Right? Why wouldn't they hate capitalism? Of course they fucking despise it. Of course they despise it. They're being told that this awful fucking system that clearly isn't free market is a free market capitalist system. So of course they're gonna be fucking communists. I don't, and it's why I don't know. It's why I don't hate communists that much, because I'm like, I understand where you're coming from. I see where you're coming from, being like communism is the shit. Now, do any of those people actually understand communism? No, but I sympathize with them and I see where they're coming from, because it's like, well, fucking, the two options are communism, capitalism, right? And if this is what capitalism is, if capitalism is people fucking dying from malnutrition while being 500 pounds, if that's what capitalism is, then I want to be a communist. So I see where they're coming from. But speaking of shit, that was a dumb, poorly worded quasi-political rant that I just went on or whatever. But speaking of shit, I was thinking about this last night and I could not stop laughing about it. So, one of my friend's girlfriends, uh, she she works in healthcare or whatever. She works in the gastrointestinal ward or whatever it's called. I have an upset tummy. That's the part of the hospital that she works in, but I call it the shit ward, right? And I was just, I couldn't stop laughing about this last night, thinking about the idea that your job is based on poop. Like, I was alone in my room, like playing Tetris on my phone or something, just like crying, laughing, being like, your job is based on poop, dude. You have a poop based job. And then I started thinking about like a poop based economy as a whole. And I was like, well, that's just India, dude. India has a poop based economy, a poop based religion. I don't know. I just couldn't stop thinking how funny it was that someone someone's livelihood is based on poop. Is based on fucking diarrhea, dude. I don't know. Just crying, laughing about that. I was alone in my room, just like staring at the ceiling, trying to play Tetris, just like cackling about that. It was fucking hilarious. As I don't know, that's just the one thing I wanted to bring up. But so we've got some news to read though. So this is our first piece of news. This is from NPR, and this one is, well, I guess it's about healthcare. I picked all these out yesterday. I didn't know that this was the shit I was going to talk about yesterday, but whatever. I didn't know that I was going to go on that retarded rant that didn't make sense. But yeah, this article is from NPR and it's about healthcare, and this is millions of soon-to-be uninsured Americans are looking for a plan B. There is no plan B. The plan B is try your best to not be predisposed to getting sick. That's the plan B. Try your best to not get leukemia. That's the plan B for all these soon-to-be uninsured Americans. But let's read this article. So, it's feeding times for the animals on this property outside of Nashville. An albino raccoon named Cricket reaches through the wires of its cage to grab an animal cracker, an appetizer treat right before the evening meal. Cricket is blind, said Robert Sorey, who is trying to open a nonprofit animal sanctuary along with his wife, Emily. A lot of our animals come to us with issues. Oh my God, dude. This is the issue with the left. I kind of, with that whole insurance, whatever, capitalism rant that I just went on, I kind of talked about some of the issues with the right, and this is the issue with the left. This is an article about the fact that there's going to be millions of Americans who don't have insurance anymore because of the malice of our government. And instead of focusing on like a single mother whose like husband died and she's raising 4 kids by herself or something like that, they're like, this guy's got a blind raccoon. Let's talk about this fucking animal sanctuary instead, or these people who are running this animal sanctuary. And it's like, I understand that that's not going to be the focus of the article. The focus of the article is going to be about these people who won't be able to have health insurance in a month, right? I understand that that's the purpose of this article. But at the same time, it's like, this is why no one gives a shit about the left, because the left, I feel like, is talking about a lot of the right issues. They kind of, and not like the government left, but like the people who are left leaning in this country are. I feel like they got the finger on the pulse of a lot of these big issues. You know what I mean? Especially Palestine, and they were like the originators of that. Not really, but like the originators of it as like a big movement. There were people talking about Palestine before that, but really most of those people were right wing. It was like Alex Jones and War Mode and conspiracy guys, but mostly right wing people who were talking about it. And then the left wing people started talking about it, and especially amongst the youth, it kind of it exploded into like this big topic of discussion and issue and stuff like that. And they're focusing on like the dumbest fucking parts about it, right? There's a lot of people are focusing on the right thing about it, which is the fact that it's a genocide, but I mean they're just talking about shit within it that people don't care about. They're like these people can't go to the mosque or whatever. Or they're like they'll be like trans healthcare in Gaza is almost non-existent. You know, like that's the issue of the left, is that maybe they're right about some of these issues, but they're going about it in completely the wrong way and focusing on the dumbest things, right? Like that's why Trump won the election. You know what I mean? That's why he was so popular amongst young people. It was the fact that, and really it's why conservatism as a whole is so popular amongst young people, is because the left chooses to focus on the dumbest fucking things, and it's completely self-imposed, right? Like a big one I think that has made the younger generation more right-leaning um is like critical race theory and stuff like that. And you look at the idea behind why they're talking about critical race theory, and like the kind of the spark, or like the, I guess, basis of it, the reason that they're talking about it in the first place is like the entrenched black people, right? Who have lived in poverty for generations and generations and are now having like this explosion of like violence and fucking like drug problems and stuff in their communities, right? But instead of addressing this issue and being like, how are we going to fix this? They're talking about like slavery and like colonialism and shit like that, and being like white people are evil, and that's why black Americans are living in this shit situation. And it's like, it's just like this perfect microcosm of why there's a rise in conservatism amongst young men, or just young people as a whole, and why people are moving away from the left, is because this is an issue. It is a very big issue that black Americans are like entrenched in poverty and violence, and that there have been all like these historical issues around them and stuff like that. But instead of looking at the current situation and figuring out current, present policies, right, in cultural shifts that can be used to end this horrific situation that's happening in America, uh, they're focusing on like the dumbest shit. They're talking about like the Emancipation Proclamation or whatever, and then from that extrapolating that all white people are demons. And it's like, of course they're not gonna. Of course white men are gonna be like, "Fuck you, dude. You think I was the one who did this? I didn't fucking do this shit. This shit has nothing to do with me. I was not the one, or it does have something to do with me, maybe, but it's not my fault that these people are living in generational poverty and violence. It's not my fault that this is happening, and you're blaming me for it? Really? This is what you're doing? Of course I'm not going to fucking listen to you, and of course I'm going to be like, fuck those black people. Of course I'm not going to give a shit about them, dude. You're saying it's my fault that they're there? You're saying it's my fault that this horrible, concoction of events happened to create this third worldish situation in the United States of America? You're saying that's my fault? Fuck off. I'm not going to listen to you. Right? And that's the big issue that the left has. They're not just focusing on the wrong topics, right? They're not just like the whole kids being trans thing. That's a big focused on completely the wrong thing there. That's a dumb thing to talk about, right? Just as a whole. As a whole, it's a dumb thing to talk about. It's a dumb hill to die on or whatever. But they're addressing the appropriate issues, but they're not doing it in the appropriate way, if that makes sense, you know? And I think that this is a prime example of it. It's like, I I don't give a shit that this guy is not going to be able to run an animal sanctuary anymore, right? Or I personally do care a little bit, but I don't care that much, right? I don't. This isn't like a big problem to me. How about you talk about, like I said, the single mother whose fucking kid has cancer and she might lose her child because of it, right? Talk about that person because I care about that stuff. I don't care about the fact that this fucking raccoon is going to be released back into the wild and it's going to get eaten by a coyote or whatever. I don't give a shit. You know, they don't they're addressing the right issues, but they're finding things within the issue that just the general public could not give less of a shit about. I could not give less of a shit about the fact that this guy's not going to be able to feed his fucking goats anymore. Right? I don't give a shit about that, dude. Talk about things that people care about. I don't care about this. I don't and talk about things that people are going to care about in a positive way. You know what I mean? Like with the whole black poverty thing. Talk about that in a way that makes it substantial in other people's lives, right? A bunch of black people being poor, it's sad and it sucks, and I do have empathy for those people, and I hope the situation gets better, but not everyone has the time to give a shit about that, right? Talk about it in a way that allows people to not only empathize with them, right? If you don't empathize with some poor fucking black kid who grew up in Chicago, his dad fucking left him, and his only option was to like sell drugs and kill people, right? If you don't empathize with that, then there's nothing I can say to make you empathize with that, right? So it's most people probably already feel empathy for the poor blacks that live in this country, right? But they don't want to hear that it's happening because of them, and that it's just like this weird thing that doesn't affect them, if that makes sense, right? You have to, the empathy's already there, right? People are either going to empathize with them or they're not. There's nothing you can do to make someone empathetic, right? Just, it can't happen, or it can, but you're not going to do it, right? So people either empathize with this, my mouth is wet as fuck right now, but sorry about that. But people are going to empathize or they're not going to empathize. So you have no control over that situation. Put it in a way that makes people like feel it and understand how it's going to affect them. Because, like I said, I don't give a shit about the fact that this guy's going to lose his wildlife sanctuary. I don't have a wildlife sanctuary. So therefore, I don't give a shit. What I do give a shit about, though, is my family. I have a family. I really care about my family. I love my family and all that stuff, right? So if you, instead of focusing on a guy with a fucking blind pet raccoon, you focused on a lady with like a young kid who's gonna die, right? And like siblings and a family that kid is gonna leave behind. If you focused on that instead, people might give a shit. But they don't care about this fucking guy and his goats and his raccoon. Yeah, I would prefer if the raccoon and the goats could stay alive. But I don't care. I don't give a shit. Sorry. I can't keep reading this article. That was fucking, it just pissed me off so goddamn much. But this is a fun little article that we got. This one is I looked up murder news to find this article. I do remember that. I looked up murder news to find this one. So this is Ohio sex worker accused of serial killings pleads guilty to 4 murders. Rebecca Alborn, 35, pleaded guilty to 4 counts of murder and 1 count of felonious assault. So this lady, an Ohio sex worker charged with fatally drugging 4 customers and trying to kill a 5th in a series of crimes described by authorities as serial killings, pleaded guilty Friday to 4 counts of murder. Rebecca Alborn, 35, also pleaded guilty to 1 count of felonious assault and theft. A spokeswoman for the Franklin County Prosecutor's Office said she faces a maximum prison term of 69 years to life. Well, that's funny because doing 69 was her life. Boom, she was a hooker. Got her ass, dude. And I do have an issue with the phrase sex worker. And it's not just the fact that it's retarded, right? It's like, just call them hookers, dude. They're hookers. being a prostitute isn't fun. Talk to any prostitute ever. It's not fun. I don't know why the left is trying to romanticize it or normalize it or whatever. I understand there's issues within that, human trafficking and shit like that, pimps, all that. I understand there's issues there, but calling them sex workers, I just feel like is ridiculous. But it's also not very descriptive. It's like, well, what do you mean by sex worker, right? Like, if you think about it, Jeffrey Epstein was a sex worker, dude. You know what I mean? If you think about it, the left should have a little bit more, they love sex workers. They should have a little bit more empathy for Jeffrey Epstein because he was a sex worker, right? He worked in the realm of sex, right? It's what he did. So Jeffrey Epstein was a sex worker, and if you hate him, then you're part of the patriarchy. I don't know. I don't know what the left believes about that stuff, but yeah, they're retarded. Just call her a hooker. She was a hooker. I get it. Her life sucked or whatever. Her dad fingered her when she was 8. I get all that stuff. But at the same time, the term sex worker is fucking ridiculous. And so in a statement, Ohio Attorney General Dave Yost said authorities had gathered an overwhelming amount of convincing evidence that left no doubt that a conviction was forthcoming. A relative of victim Wayne Aiken said she was grateful that Alburn was being held accountable. I've spent 2 years preparing for the worst, and now it's almost over, Kristen Akin Crockett said by text. The grieving process can finally begin. Auburn was indicted in 2023 on multiple counts of murder, aggravated robbery, and felonious assault. Authorities have said that between January 15th and June 17th of that year, she met 4 customers for sex in the Columbus area and fatally drugged them with fentanyl. Okay, so this is like Columbus, Ohio. And the thing about Columbus, Ohio is the best thing that could possibly happen to you in Columbus, Ohio is being killed by a prostitute with fentanyl. That's the pinnacle of a life in Columbus, Ohio. Life in Columbus, Ohio cannot get any better than being killed by a prostitute with fentanyl. That's the best they could have hoped for. This woman is a saint. In December 2022, she was accused in the attempted overdose of a 5th person and charged with aggravated robbery. Officials previously identified the victims Aiken, 64, Robert Snoke, 54, Joseph Crumpler, 30, and Guy Renda Jr., 42. This lady was going for everybody. We got a 34-year age gap. And honestly, good for Aiken that he's still getting his dick hard. You shouldn't be fucking prostitutes, but, I mean, if your dick's still getting hard, good for you at 64, dude. That's good work. So relatives of Aiken have said it's unclear whether he was actually a customer of Albert. Yeah, this guy was... No, he just randomly met this prostitute and somehow she gave him fucking fentanyl. Yeah, that was just a random course of events that happened. Yeah, he was a fucking customer. Honestly, if you want to be a serial killer, being a prostitute's the best way to do it, right? Because there's no way anyone's like leaving the house being like, all right, I'm gonna go see a prostitute at the Motel 8 or whatever, right? That's not happening, right? And so you don't have people who can like identify where the body might be or where the guy might have been when he got murdered or went missing or whatever, right? And you're always in a secluded environment. It's the best if you want to be a serial killer. But anyway, his daughter, Kristen Akin Crockett, has criticized authorities for what she described as an initial lack of interest in pursuing leads that she said showed Aiken's death was suspicious. Months before Alburn's arrest, Akin Crockett said she heard from a tipster that a woman named Becca had killed 4 people, including Aiken, in April 2023. She said she spoke to provide that information to the Columbus Division of Police, but was turned away and told officials were awaiting toxicology results to determine if Aiken's death was suspicious. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this serial killing. Obviously, it's bad, right? Like, just being a dude and getting a prostitute doesn't mean you should die, but also, I mean, if you're meeting a bitch in a Motel 8 and paying her $10 for a fucking blowjob or whatever, I talked about this with the Eileen Wernos thing. You have to accept that's a possibility, right? You have to accept that that's not just a possibility, a very real, concrete, likely possibility, right? That's one of the things you have to accept. You can't just pay $10 for a blowjob and be like, well, everything's gonna go perfect. It's like, no, you gotta understand what you're getting yourself into. But it's been an hour. We made it somehow. Um, yeah, that's all I got for today. I hope you guys have a good day, a good week, a good year, a good life. And I'll see you guys in the next episode. We're talking about the Black Douglas. Ping.